You open the chart. The balance is small, almost insignificant, but the desire is enormous. The market has barely started to move and your heart is already beating faster. Each candle feels like an invitation. You draw lines, observe patterns, but deep down, you're not looking for opportunity. You're looking for sensation. And when you finally enter the trade, it's not rationality that acts. It's the addiction. The same addiction you swear you don't have. At first, it seems harmless. One click. Another. A small profit that activates the same dopamine circuit as someone winning a bet. You convince yourself that you're in control, that trading is about technique, strategy, and study. But the more the chart moves, the more you realize the battlefield was never external. It's inside your head that the wars begin. And that's where you bleed the most. The market becomes the perfect mirror. It reflects every one of your insecurities, every trace of your impatience, every frustrated attempt to prove you're good enough. And it's in that reflection that the mental addiction is born, the one that can turn an ordinary trader into someone capable of turning $100 into millions, but also the same addiction that can destroy everything in a matter of days. What defines the destiny is not the addiction itself, but the direction it takes. Most people enter the market seeking freedom, but become prisoners of their own mind. They want to master the chart, but are mastered by it. They want to control the outcome, but are enslaved by the need to see the balance grow right now. That is the mental addiction. The obsession with immediate relief, with the feeling of winning, even if the win is minimal, even if the price of that is losing the bigger game. The addicted trader is not the one who trades a lot. It's the one who cannot stand the silence. The interval between trades is the moment he has to face himself, and that is unbearable. That's why he clicks, opens a position, closes it, changes asset, re-enters. Every order is an escape from his own anxiety, every trade an attempt to avoid the discomfort of waiting. He calls it looking for opportunities, but in reality it's just a sophisticated way of running from himself. This addiction is treacherous because it disguises itself as effort. You believe you're being disciplined, that you're practicing, that you're in the game, but in truth you're being consumed by the need to feel control. And the market, like a cruel mirror, will keep showing you the reflection of that compulsion until you understand that true control is born from detachment. That is the point that separates the amateur from the professional. The amateur needs the emotion. The professional has learned to live without it. But why is this difference so hard to achieve? Because the human mind has been conditioned since childhood to seek immediate reward. We were trained to value the now, to celebrate every small victory, to flee from waiting. And trading is the opposite of that. It demands the ability to endure the void between the click and the result. It demands patience, trust, and above all, the capacity to not act. Mental addiction is born when the mind cannot bear the void. And the average trader spends his life trying to fill it with movement, but that's not the real problem. The problem is what the movement does to your identity. Every time you enter the market without a clear purpose, you reinforce the belief that value lies in doing, not in being. You start measuring your progress by the number of trades, not by the quality of decisions. Over time, this distortion creates a cycle. The more you trade, the more you need to trade to feel alive. And the more you need to, the less you see. The mind becomes hostage to the need for stimulation, and the trader turns into an addict of micro-victories. But there's a detail almost no one notices. The same mental circuit that enslaves you can be reprogrammed. The same addiction that destroys can be the engine of the great turnaround. Well, when you understand the nature of the addiction, you can redirect it. Instead of seeking dopamine in trades, you learn to seek it in the process. Instead of becoming addicted to quick gains, you become addicted to consistency. Pleasure stops coming from the result and starts coming from correct execution, even if the immediate result is a loss. It's at this point that $100 can truly turn into millions, not by magic, but by mental structure. The trader who wins is the one who transforms addiction into discipline. He still feels the same urge, the same impulse, but learns to channel it. Every trigger that once made him click now makes him observe. Every moment of impatience becomes an opportunity to strengthen calm. He understands there is no way to eliminate the addiction, only to convert it. And it's in that conversion that the game changes level. Think of compound interest. At first, growth is invisible. But those who understand the power of time know the secret is not speed, but constancy. The same applies to the mind. Every time you master an impulse, you're applying compound interest to your discipline. Every time you resist the temptation to trade out of boredom, you increase your psychological capital. And over time, that strength translates into clearer decisions, more calculated risks, and more stable profits. It's no coincidence that the most successful traders don't talk about setups, they talk about the mind, because the setup is just the vehicle, the mind is the fuel. But here's the paradox, most never reach this point because they confuse addiction with talent. They believe trading all the time is a sign of dedication, that always being on the chart is proof of focus, that reacting fast is a virtue. But haste is just fear in disguise, and fear is the root of all mental addiction. Fear of losing, fear of missing out, fear of being wrong, fear of not being good enough. These fears feed the cycle of impulsive action, and the more you try to prove you're strong, the more you weaken your ability to wait. But there is a mindset shift that reverses this cycle. You have to stop trading to feel in control and start controlling in order to trade. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. A controlled trader trades with awareness, an addicted trader trades with urgency, and the market only rewards one of them. This is the point where psychology meets philosophy. Because trading is not just about money, it's about identity. Every decision you make on the chart reveals who you are when no one is watching. And the market, indifferent and merciless, will keep giving you back versions of yourself until you understand what really needs to change. It's not the indicator, it's not the strategy, it's the mind. You don't fail because the market rejects you. You fail because you can't distance yourself enough from yourself to see what's happening, and that's why this addiction is so dangerous. It doesn't warn you when it starts, it disguises itself as progress, learning, passion, but the line between passion and compulsion is so thin that most only notice it after they've already crossed it. Mental addiction in trading is like an internal fire. It can burn you or forge you. The difference lies in how you feed it. This fire starts small. A slight discomfort, a feeling that you need to do something when the chart is quiet. It's the same impulse that makes a person check their phone every minute even when there's no notification. The same conditioned reflex that seeks stimulation before direction. And it's exactly this pattern that stops 99% of traders from evolving. The inability to be at peace with the absence of movement. The market doesn't punish those who miss an entry. The market punishes those who don't know how to wait. Most believe being a trader means always being ready. But in reality, true power lies in knowing how to remain still. The amateur trader needs to feel he's acting. The professional trader has learned to feel peace in inaction. That is one of the biggest psychological differences between the two worlds. The amateur feels he's wasting time when he's not trading. The professional knows he's accumulating energy, clarity, and focus. The amateur seeks adrenaline. The professional seeks alignment. But there's something even deeper in all this. The human mind was trained to believe that acting equals progressing. From early on, you were praised when you did something. Not when you waited. You learned that still equals behind. And that belief seeps into every decision on the chart. It's what makes you press the button when you should just observe. It's what turns patience into pain. And when patience hurts, the addiction wins. Mental addiction in trading is not just about dopamine. It's about identity. You feel like someone while you're trading. When the chart is closed, you feel empty. And that emptiness is the real enemy. Until you learn to fill it with purpose, it will dominate you. That's why so many traders can't stop even after huge losses. They're not trying to recover money. They're trying to recover a piece of themselves. The trade became a way to feel alive. And when the profit doesn't come, the ego demands immediate compensation. It's the beginning of the self-sabotage spiral. The more you try to escape the pain, the deeper you sink into it. But there is a breaking point. A moment when the trader realizes the problem was never the market, but his own mind addicted to control. It's when you start to understand that the chart is not an enemy, but a mirror. Every candle is a reaction of yours being projected. Every loss is a lesson you refuse to learn about yourself. Every profit, a temptation to believe you're already cured, when in truth the addiction has only changed shape. When you understand this, trading stops being a battlefield and becomes a temple. Yes, a temple, because it's there that you confront your inner demons, greed, fear, impatience, ego. It's where you learn the true meaning of discipline, not as force, but as surrender. True discipline is not fighting the impulse. It's observing the impulse without becoming it. That is the invisible art that separates the conscious trader from the compulsive one. Every time you resist the urge to act without reason, you reprogram the brain. You're teaching the mind that control is not clicking. It's choosing not to click. That is the muscle of patience, the hardest to train and the most valuable of all. Every moment you stand firm, even when you want to enter any trade, you're applying compound interest to your mind. And over time, that silent strength turns into lucidity. Lucidity is the true edge. Not setup, not indicator, not luck. Lucidity to see the market as it is and not as your anxiety paints it. Mental addiction creates illusions. It makes you see opportunities where there is only noise. It makes you believe you're almost mastering the market, when in reality the market is watching you repeat the same mistakes. It knows you'll act too soon. It knows you'll close too early. It knows that deep down, you're still a slave to fear. And as long as that's true, no technique will save you. But something changes when you start to understand the pattern. When you realize the addiction can be tamed, not eliminated. That the same desire for movement can be redirected toward the process. You start to feel pleasure in waiting, satisfaction in following the plan, euphoria in respecting the defined risk even if you lose. That is the turning point. Professionals didn't free themselves from the addiction. They domesticated it. They learned to turn the need for action into precision. The impulse to click became the impulse to review the plan. Anxiety about the result became curiosity about price behavior. They found a new kind of dopamine, the dopamine of consistency. that feeling of mastery that doesn't come from the gain, but from self-control. And that's where multiplication happens. Not the multiplication of money, but of power. The power to remain unshaken, to not be pulled by the cycle of haste, comparison, urgency. The trader who conquers this can start with $100 and turn it into millions, not because he found a secret formula, but because he found himself. And a trader who knows himself is an invincible trader. But you have to understand the price of this transformation. You will lose friends who still live for the addiction. You will be misunderstood by those who think living off trading means living in constant euphoria. You will feel bored while the market sleeps and everyone around you chases random moves. You will be accused of not trading enough. But inside, you will smile because you know you're finally playing the right game. And it's precisely in that silence that the wise trader finds gold. Because the true gold of the market is not on the chart. It's in the mind that can remain calm when everything seems urgent. It's in that state that you begin to see the invisible, patterns no one notices, repetitions the impulsive ignore, and the perfect symmetry between chaos and opportunity. But to get there, you have to cross the desert of mental abstinence, the phase where you feel disconnected from the market because you stopped acting without thinking. It's painful, lonely, almost spiritual, but it's the only way. The trader who crosses that desert is reborn, and when he is reborn, the market stops being a threat and becomes a partner. Because now, every loss is a teacher. Every day without a trade is patience training. Every emotion is a reminder that control begins inside. You don't need to eliminate the addiction. You need to educate it, turn the craving for results into love for the process, convert the desire to act into the strength to wait. That is the secret the market tries to show you every day, and that few are willing to see. There's a point where the mind stops fighting and starts observing. It's the instant the trader realizes he doesn't need to beat the market. He needs to beat himself. That understanding changes everything. The chart stops being an arena and becomes a mirror of personal growth. Every candle, every movement, every loss becomes a reflection of something inside you that still needs to be understood. You begin to realize that the real game was never about predicting the next price move, but about predicting the next move of your own mind. And here's the paradox. The ordinary trader spends years trying to master the chart, while the wise trader spends the rest of his life mastering his own ego. Mental addiction is the secret tool of both. The difference is the direction. One is driven by escape, the other by search. One seeks the quick pleasure of being right, the other seeks the slow satisfaction of becoming consistent. And that difference creates two completely opposite destinies. The amateur trader wakes up every day to prove something, to prove he can recover what he lost, to prove he's smart, to prove he's better than others, to prove that this time it will work. But every attempt takes him further from the essence. He trades with the weight of expectation, and all expectation is a form of prison. When the result doesn't come, the mind seeks the fastest relief, another trade. It's the vicious cycle of dopamine, a self-feeding loop until it destroys clarity. The professional trader wakes up to observe. He doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't seek to validate his worth through a chart. He understands that profit is a consequence of a balanced mental state. He trades like someone performing a ritual with precision, presence, and detachment. He knows the result is not under his control, only the decision, and therefore he never reacts, he only responds. While the amateur trades to feel in control, the professional trades because he already possesses it internally. The market rewards those who think in probabilities, not certainties. But mental addiction needs certainty to survive. It needs to believe that this time it will work. And it's precisely that need that destroys it. Because the more you try to force the result, the more the market shows you it's uncontrollable. Have you noticed how the best traders seem cold? It's not emotional coldness, it's it's emotional freedom. They don't need to feel anything to act correctly. They learned to do what's right even when it doesn't feel pleasurable. And that is emotional maturity, choosing the discomfort that brings growth over the pleasure that brings regret. But this kind of mindset doesn't come from theory. It comes from pain. From the sequence of mistakes, repeated frustration, the feeling of helplessness the market imposes until you finally give up fighting it. And when you stop fighting, the addiction loses strength because it feeds on resistance. Everything you try to control controls you. And when you let go, power returns to your hands. It's curious how the process of becoming a consistent trader is actually a disguised spiritual process. You start trying to make money and end up trying to understand who you are. The chart becomes your most ruthless and at the same time fairest master. It doesn't forgive, but it also doesn't lie. It shows exactly what you still don't want to see about yourself. Your impatience, your pride, your need for validation. And until you reconcile with that, the market will keep punishing you. Not out of malice, but out of precision. The trader who understands this stops chasing miracles and starts building foundations. He transforms addiction into discipline and anxiety into focus. He learns to love the daily process of observing, waiting, planning, and executing calmly. He doesn't seek adrenaline, he seeks consistency. And consistency is what turns $100 into millions. Not because money matters, but because mastery of the mind makes money stop mattering. And that's when it starts to come. It's when you stop needing profit that it comes naturally, because the market senses when you're attached to need. It smells the fear, the sweat of haste, the gaze that begs the chart to do what you want. But when you reach a point of neutrality, the market starts to respect you, because finally you speak the same language as it, the language of probability, not emotion. The addicted mind lives in peaks, the mature mind lives in waves, and waves, when understood, become predictable. After all, everything in the market is a cycle, and everything inside you is too. You rise, fall, consolidate, break out, and repeat. The secret is to notice which phase of your own cycle you're in. If you're in emotional high, it's time for caution. If you're in low, it's time for reflection. But the addicted trader doesn't see cycles. He only sees moments. And that's why he's always reacting, never creating. There's a phrase that sums it all up. The amateur needs to win to feel good. The professional needs to feel good to be able to win. That difference changes everything, because performance is always a consequence of the internal state. And the internal state is the reflection of your relationship with your own addiction. The addicted trader seeks euphoria. The wise trader seeks balance. The first wants intensity. The second wants constancy. And constancy is a form of silent power that few understand. Think of a surfer. He doesn't fight the sea. He learns to synchronize with it. He understands the ocean is stronger and therefore respects it. The market is the same ocean, vast, unpredictable, and indifferent to your will. You don't dominate it, you align with it. And the more you try to force it, the more you sink. But when you learn to wait for the right wave, the market starts to carry you, and it's in that flow that the true trader is born. The irony is that mental addiction, when purified, turns into disciplined passion. The same energy that once made you click nonstop now makes you study, review, reflect. The dopamine is still there, but now it's the reward for self-control. Pleasure stopped coming from action and started coming from patience. That is the invisible miracle that separates the few who win from the many who give up. And perhaps the most important point, you don't eliminate addiction with willpower, but with awareness. There's no way to fight something that is part of your biology. But you can observe it, understand it, and redirect it. That is true mastery. And that's why the trader who conquers the addiction conquers everything. Because he learned to use the mind for him, not against him. The trader who reaches this level understands something almost no one notices. The market is not about winning or losing. It's about resisting. Resisting the urgency to prove something. Resisting the temptation to press the button just to relieve anxiety. Resisting the need to feel in control. And that resistance is what generates power. You don't conquer the market by mastering charts, setups, or secret strategies. You conquer it when you master the mind that reacts to them. The ordinary trader seeks information. The wise trader seeks awareness. The difference is brutal. Information teaches you what to do. Awareness teaches you what not to do. And it's in that not doing that the great results accumulate. But mental addiction will always try to pull you back. It's subtle, patient, disguised. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It whispers that just this one trade won't hurt. It whispers that you need to recover what you lost. It whispers that the market is moving and you'll be left out. And every time you listen to that whisper, it's your old mind trying to regain control. You don't destroy the addiction, you silence it with practice, with presence, with discipline. You re-educate it until it becomes your servant and no longer your master. That is the true turnaround. When you realize that the same fire that burned your patience now illuminates your focus. The same impulse that made you act out of anxiety now moves you to study with intention. The same dopamine that once came from a random win now comes from internal mastery. The addiction became fuel. The trader who turns addiction into virtue discovers what consistency is. He understands that success is not an event. It's a consequence. It's the invisible result of small daily victories that no one sees. He falls in love with silence, with the interval between trades, with the sound of his own control. And it's at that point that financial results stop mattering. Because when the trader reaches that state of clarity, money is just the mirror of his internal progress. He doesn't seek to get rich. He seeks to remain lucid. And it's precisely because of that that he gets rich. Most never get there because they want shortcuts, they want emotion, they want to feel alive. But true trading is the opposite of euphoria. It's serenity amid chaos. It's seeing the storm and remaining still. You don't multiply $100 into millions because the market favors you. You multiply because you learn to become someone the market can't break. And that is the true victory. The numbers on the screen are just a metaphor. The real growth is happening inside you. Invisible, silent, compounded. Every time you wait without giving in. Every time you accept a loss without punishing yourself. Every time you execute the plan even with fear. You're investing in an account that time multiplies. That is the secret of the few who last. They don't try to be perfect, they become constant. And constancy is the name maturity gives to faith. Faith not in the market, but in yourself, in your own capacity to observe without reacting, to decide without emotion, to persist without haste. In the end, the market doesn't want your money, it wants your ego. It wants to see how far you can go without needing to prove anything. And when you finally stop proving, it gives back everything it took with interest. Because the market rewards the same principle that governs life. Those who remain win. Those who mature flourish. Those who learn to wait harvest. You started seeking money, but you will end seeking awareness. And when that happens, everything changes. Because a conscious trader doesn't seek profits, he attracts them. Not because he's special, but because he's aligned with the rhythm of the game itself. The truth is simple. Mental addiction will never completely disappear, but it can transform. It can become the engine of patience, the flame of focus, the reminder that there is still something inside you that needs polishing. The ordinary trader fights the mind. The wise trader befriends it, and it's in that friendship that money multiplies, not as a reward, but as a reflection. In the end, the chart is just a mirror. It shows exactly what you feel, what you fear, and what you still need to master. The trader who learns to read that mirror no longer needs to search for miraculous setups, because he became the setup itself. Consistency is not a result, it's an identity. And the trader who understands this discovers the rarest power of all, freedom. Freedom to act without impulse, to lose without fear, to win without losing himself. That is the state that turns an ordinary trader into an unstoppable force. Not for having beaten the market, but for having beaten himself. The market doesn't reward the smartest nor the fastest. It rewards those who can remain lucid when everyone else loses control. You don't need to be a genius, you need to be conscious. And when awareness awakens, $100 is enough to start an empire, because the empire begins inside you.